I've written an article about the fun topic of death and the afterlife in Judaism. And I've looked at how Jews have thought about these things through their very long history, from the Bible through the Talmud, and to modern thinkers such as Buber and Rosenzweig and Soloveitchik. The challenge is that there's not just one or even a handful of consistent views throughout time, but rather a patchwork of different views, often reflecting the culture of the places where Jews have lived. However, it is possible, I think, to identify a few overarching themes which might be taken as characteristic of the Jewish tradition. These include an overarching focus on life over death, a belief that the soul is intimately tied up with the body, and therefore the two must be judged together on resurrection, that there are laws which place a firm barrier between life and death, and there's a lot of rituals. There are many rituals, such as the 7-day Shiva period, which aims to assist the mourner to deal with loss and reintegrate her back into the community so she can go on living. How a system approaches death tells us quite a lot about how it sees life. There's a statement in the biblical Song of Songs that love conquers death. And in many respects, the idea of love sums up, I think, how Judaism deals with death. The Bible doesn't have a developed view of the afterlife. So a constructive theology might claim that the reason for this is because there really is no difference between life and death. There is just simply two modes of living. You either live with God and love, or you live without God. And if you live without God, you're dead, whether you're actually physically dead or not. I hope that my article shows a tradition which sees death as having meaning and which encourages us to face death and to live bravely with faith. Jewish views on death and the afterlife aren't always consistent, and certain views come to prominence and then will slip back in the background. There is a sentiment that we should try and keep life going as long as possible, which would point in the direction of transhumanism. There isn't a position on transhumanism. We have to kind of forge one from what we have from the tradition. But it actually points in two different directions, because in one sense, there is a notion that we have a duty to heal, and there's a biblical basis for that. And that would imply that we try and keep ourselves alive for as long as possible. And there are rabbinic statements to that effect, that every second in this world is important. But there's also a recognition that actually life has meaning because it's temporal and because it doesn't last forever. And in fact, I can envisage a difficulty, even if our lifespans increase by a few hundred years, in trying to keep hold and sustain meanings throughout such a long life.